Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and I am joined today by the owner, the operator of Fantasy Guides at fantasyguides.com, Stephen Rippey, as well as AJ Cleaver, fellow Fantasy Guides contributor and freak in those Google Sheets. Welcome, gentlemen. We are back to talk about the matchups going into week 3. Gentlemen, I don't know about you. I'm both excited for another week of football with another week of data to consume. I'm also a little bit saddened. It still feels like week 1, and this is what football does to us every year. It sneaks up on us, and it's just gone before we know it. Steven, do you already feel like we're halfway through the season?
A little bit, yeah, because the first, as AJ knows, the first couple of weeks are super stressful, just trying to get everything lined up for content and for rankings and the website and making sure everything flows smoothly, which it hasn't. I mean, for the most part it has, but there's definitely been some hiccups to start. Whereas now I'm like, I have a little more time to enjoy the games. I'm not scrambling just to make sure everything's ready to go. So now I'm actually really getting to enjoy them. So this is my week 1, I think, Andrew.
Oh, you know, at least it feels early for you still, and we're ready to hit our stride completely. I know, Steven, you were saying you had maybe a tough week last week. This week, we're going pure, 100%. Everything's hitting, and it's starting with our first matchup because we're going to go through every single matchup this week for week 3. Other than Thursday night. Obviously, this is dropping after the game. We're recording mid-game, so we might say some woos and ows as it happens, but everything after that we got to, even the 2 Monday night games. NFL, we're better than this. We can't run 2 games at the same time on Monday. That's not the point. But AJ, get us into it. What's the first game we're breaking down for every start-sit decision?
Andrew, you say that the NFL is better than this, but I don't know if you took a look at this week's game slate, and I'm starting to be convinced that they're not better than this because our first matchup of the 12 o'clock games is the New York Giants versus the Cleveland Browns. The over-under is 39.5. Cleveland is favored by 6.5, and since that seems pretty depressing, here's another depressing stat for you. The Giants have one player on their roster who in their career has more than 750 yards receiving in a season, and that was Darius Slayton, who did it last year.
That's disgusting. Giants, what are we doing? Why is this franchise around? We need to do better than that.
It's crazy, too. You'd think New York, of all places, would have a franchise we'd be excited about. It was in the 80s. In the 80s, it was fun. Early 90s, it was a fun franchise. Not so much lately.
They didn't get the update with the times.
I forget. Eli Manning did win 2 Super Bowls, so they had a run, but it didn't feel like it, did it?
It was just 2 blip years to take down a Patriots dynasty. And for that, we thank you, Eli Manning.
Seriously.
Steven, the matchups in this one. What do you like? What do you hate?
Well, I hate it for the Giants for the most part. This Cleveland defense is stout. They have really shut down the 2 teams, Dallas and Jacksonville, that they've played so far. They're playing at home. They have the over-under. Andrew, when we see it drop below 40 points, we don't get excited. This is at 39.5. I think the only playable asset for the Giants, I think, is Malik Neighbors. And even he, I'm not all that excited about. I've got him at the wide receiver 18 right now. So he's fine, but I'm not starting Daniel Jones. I don't think I'm starting Devin Singletary unless I'm desperate. I'm expecting a low volume game for him and just this whole offense.
It actually isn't a horrible matchup. Usually we see Cleveland Browns get very scared for everybody. It's not a terrible matchup this year, weirdly enough, especially for Singletary. It could be worse, but yeah, I don't want to start Singletary in a good matchup, let alone a not good matchup.
Oh, so I'll start him in a good matchup. A good matchup, I'm fine. PFF has this as like an awful rating for him. And I mean, Cleveland is giving up 12th fewest fantasy points to running backs and the 7th fewest touches. And Andrew, I think you would agree, Devin Singletary is going to need a lot of touches in this one to rack up points.
Yeah, and that's what he does. He just goes full James Robinson, needs 90% of the work, and maybe he'll get there. But to your point, I'm starting Singletary only if I've been ravaged by CMC injury, Pacheco injury. It's going to take a lot.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a mid-range, maybe low-end RB3 this week. Other side of the ball, hard to get excited about any Browns either. I think you can still roll out with Amari Cooper. I think he's he hasn't completely dropped off. I think we're going to still see a game or two from him this season. It's a decent matchup for him. It's not a great matchup. It's just, I guess it's kind of an average matchup, but I'm still willing to roll him as like a back end wide receiver 2 in this one. I don't like the splits we've been seeing with the running back position like we saw last week, so I'm not really all that excited. Even though it's a decent matchup, I'm not super excited to start Jerome Ford. So for me, it's really Amari Cooper, and that's about it.
I'm terrified. What are we doing, Browns? We thought we had one good thing. Amidst the Deshaun Watson destruction, amidst the David Njoku injury, we thought we had one thing, a nice Jerome Ford we could rely on weekly to get lots of work, and you took that away from us to give Deontay Foreman more work? What did it cost you, and was it worth it? No, it wasn't.
Of course it wasn't worth it.
Would you rather start Deontay Foreman in a game we assume the Browns win and Vegas agrees, or would you rather start Jerome?
I mean, in this game script, which I think should favor the Browns, it feels more like a Foreman game.
I'd agree. And that's the sad part. And he's so inefficient for fantasy that he has to score a touchdown or you're done for. Yeah. So that just stinks. Browns, you took that from us. How dare you? All right. Let's get out of this one. Start Neighbors. Singletary if you must. Browns, you're a disgrace to the NFL. What's the next one, AJ?
All right, next we have the Packers taking on the Titans. Tennessee is favored by 2.5 with the over-under at 37.5. And looking through Twitter this past week, I saw Gia Duddy, I think that's how you say her name, Will Levis's ex-girlfriend, the one that we saw just absolutely disappointed that he was sliding in the draft, come out and say that she doesn't believe in revenge because the universe took care of it, of course, referring to Levis's 0-2 start on the season.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, or was she referring to the terrible Mayo commercials? Either one.
Yeah, I thought he outkicked his coverage. What happened there?
Universe came around. Everything comes back around, Mr. Mayo, man. Watch yourself.
Yeah. So I guess Jordan Love was limited for the second straight day. So I think there's a chance he could play. It says it's a game time decision, which changes drastically how we look at this offense. If he's playing, I mean, you're starting Josh Jacobs regardless.
Oh,
so let's just get that out of the way. But if he's playing, you're playing Jordan Love, I think, in this one. You are playing Jaden Reed. That's probably about all I want to commit to right now in his first action back. But would you, Andrew, go with Dubs or Watson? Are you that daring, or is it kind of just the three that I mentioned?
I am not willing to start Christian Watson, even in a good matchup. The utilization is just horrid for the man. Yeah. Talented is all get out, I think, but he's just bad at being a wide receiver. Dubs, you could talk me into out of desperation. I still don't like it. They've got a couple good corners in Tennessee. So yeah, to your point, Reed, Love, Jacobs, and the tight ends I think will get figured out, but I'm not ready for it this week. Maybe Tucker Kraft if Love's there.
Yeah. Other side of the ball, Tony Pollard, he looks like he's 2002 Tony Pollard. So I think he's an every week start moving forward as kind of a mid-range, maybe high-end RB2. Will Levis, I'm not looking to start him, not until things change, and he looks like he can actually play quarterback. Calvin Ridley, though, he still looks pretty good. We were talking this offseason, Andrew, me, you, and Jacob. You guys both said Ridley was the alpha. I said it was probably still Hopkins. I think we have to, as Vegas would do, void that one. Because of the
no, I get my victory lap regardless. But to your point, yeah, he's very hurt and old.
Yeah,
not just old.
But because of that, I like Ridley even more. So I think Ridley, he was able to do it against Sauce and the Jets defense last week and put up like 24 points. So if he can do it against them, I think he can do it against anybody. So I still got him as like a back end, probably wide receiver 2 this week, maybe high end wide receiver 3.
To back the Pollard start, it's everything. This is what we wanted for him on the Cowboys last year.
Yeah.
And he's got a great matchup. Green Bay is giving up the 6th most yards per rush attempt. So it's exceptional. Like the Green Bay Packers defense hasn't stopped much except for a Colts offense that was absolutely dreadful. But even then, I can tell you is a lot of Anthony Richardson missing throws more than them stopping them. So it's a great matchup. And Pollard has the 12th highest rush share of any running back in the NFL and the 5th highest target share. He's must start. This is a good matchup. I'm really pushing up Tony Pollard this week.
Well, and he was ranked higher than Spears for a reason. I mean, we liked him, right? We liked him 2 years ago, and we liked him last year as a value last year. It just took a year for that value to hit.
Oh, and who would have thought when you break your leg, it takes a little bit to come back. Remember when he was saying, I got faster? At the end of last year, he said, after this broken leg, I'm faster than I ever was before. No, you weren't.
No.
Faster than maybe while you had the broken leg.
But now he's getting faster.
Yeah, he's got like a Terminator leg on. That's got to be what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
All that technology in Tennessee they got rolling for him. AJ, take us to the next one.
All right, next we have the Bears versus the 0-2 for the shoe Colts. The Colts are favored by 1.5. The over-under is 43.5. And this weekend, gentlemen, there is a college game, Utah versus OSU, where the combined age of the starting quarterbacks is 49. The combined age for the starting quarterbacks in this Colts-Bears game is 44.
Wow. They're just letting people play college football till they're in their 30s now.
There's a 33-year-old punter on some team in college football right now.
Jeez. That's just...
You've got hope, Steven.
They're getting older and older. I mean, Bo Nix is... Was he 25?
Something like that. Steven, do you still have eligibility?
I hope so.
Can we train you to kick? That'd be so fun for the brand.
My arm's feeling pretty good.
We've seen quarterback play lately. You think you can get out there, and I believe in you.
No, I'm kidding. All right. As far as the matchups, Keenan Allen did not practice today. That feels like he's not going to play.
Nope. So, too many hot dogs.
Too many. His foot's too heavy, which makes me really...
All his weight went straight to his foot. Got it. Got it.
So I like DJ Moore in this one. This offense has been pretty abysmal to start the year. But I think DJ Moore, he's getting enough volume. You had mentioned, I don't remember when you mentioned it, but I don't know if did you tweet about it, Andrew? DJ Moore.
We talked about DJ Moore on our buy sell pod.
Was that what it was? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So volume's there for DJ Moore. I still like him as a mid-range wide receiver 2 this week. You're definitely firing him up. And still Swift, I still think he's in for a game. It's going to come. Colts giving up the most touches to the running back position, the most total yards to the second most total yards to the position they can be run on. I think that he could have a decent game in this one. So I like him as a back-end RB2 with upside.
I really hope the Bears get going this week. The Colts defense, as much as I love them, it does one thing, and it's rush the quarterback. That's all they have is defensive ends. And if they don't get there, they're just done for.
And they don't have Buckner, right? Isn't he out?
Buckner just hit the IR with an ankle, and it's going to open things up even more. The Bears love running to the outside. The Colts specifically have been destroyed on outside runs. That's where Swift is good. That's where the Bears want to attack. If Swift is ever going to do something, it needs to be this matchup because the volume is there. It's pathetic.
Yeah. Other side of the ball, I mean, you have to start Anthony Richardson. Doesn't matter. There's no scenario where you rank him outside the top 10. I tried to do it today and I couldn't. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks with really good matchups, and Richardson's matchup's not good, but you just can't move him. Like, he's 250 pounds. You can't move him. And I tried to rank him lower, but there's like a Goff barrier. It's like you try to rank him after Goff, and it like error message will not adjust.
Don't do it. There's a Goff dam on that reservoir. It just will not go over. To that point, Anthony Richardson is sad. 4 complete games in his career. He's gone 20-plus points in 3 of them. Last week was the only week he did not go more than 20 points when playing a complete game. So it just he's not going to throw 3 picks every time. That's what held him back.
Well, and the only reason you may have even drafted another quarterback if you drafted him was just for insurance. Not to start over him. So he's an every week start. Jonathan Taylor, he should be fine in this one. I think it won't come easy, but I think he'll get enough work to get you RB1 numbers. Have him as like a mid-range RB1. Michael Pittman in this one, I think he's completely benchable. I have no issues benching him. I don't want to start him. I've got him as the wide receiver 31 this week, so it just depends on your roster. If you need him, I'm sorry. Also, should we be giving Alec Pierce more love?
No.
No? I mean, we're so quick to give it to Jamison Williams.
No, we should not.
He was this elite prospect, but they're kind of doing the same thing, are they not?
No, one's getting targets. One's actually earning lots of targets. Alec Pierce is just on the field all of the time and running deep and happens to actually be the one catching the accurate passes. Alec Pierce's utilization hasn't changed from last year. It's like Rashid Shaheed on crack in terms of how lucky it is.
Yeah.
Alec Pierce, the touchdown he caught last week was total garbage time. Like Anthony Richardson threw the touchdown and didn't get excited because he knew the game was over.
Well,
Alec Pierce is a sham.
And Josh Downs is back this week, is he not? I believe
he is, but I think that'll mean more to Adonai Mitchell because Josh Downs very much a slot receiver. Pierce is bodying guys up on the outside.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, I really am only wanting to start Richardson and Taylor, and only in a emergency situation. I mean, Michael Pittman's a good wide receiver, so would I be surprised if he has a good game here? No, but I don't think he has a great game. I think he's risky. I'm kind of wanting to save him for a better matchup.
You can't trust it. I really think there's a world where they switch things up with the Colts because what they're doing just simply isn't working, and they maybe go a little less downfield shot action. I don't know. You could see some changes. Don't drop Pittman. Like, we're never going to get to that world, I don't believe. I have hope but you can't do it now.
Yeah. He wasn't a guy, I don't think, were any of us targeting him? And I don't think any of us had strong takes either way, but I was
pushing him down, and it hurt my heart to do so.
Yeah.
I traded him away this year in Dynasty. I hated it.
And the thing is, I was down on him a little bit last year when they had AR, just because I thought the volume and accuracy wouldn't be there. And then
you were right.
And not at the beginning of the year. Like, AR actually did target him a ton. And Michael Pittman did do good at the beginning of the year with Richardson. And then he continued to do good with Gardner Minshew. So I thought there was still hope, but that hope appears to be gone.
Yeah, let's see if they change things up. In the meantime, sit Pittman where you can. He's a wide receiver 3 with upside.
Yep.
That's what you got to look at him as. AJ, next one. What we got?
All right, we have the Texans taking on the Vikings. The Texans are favored by 2. The over-under is 46.5. And these two teams have only played each other 5 times, with the Vikings winning all 5 of those matchups.
Well, this is a younger franchise, so maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, but both of these teams have kind of flip-flopped on being really good or really bad over that stretch. So that's really interesting to see that the Vikings have won 5 of those. Let's see them go 6-0. Upset the Texans. Down with the Texans.
Well,
that's the Colts fan in me.
This would be the year to do it. But I mean, if I'm going CJ Stroud versus Sam Darnold, I'm going to pick Stroud every time.
A bold take.
But so here's the thing. This is a tough matchup if you just look at the points per game that the Vikings give up. But they also played Daniel Jones week 1. And then last week they played, which we thought would be a tough game for Brock Purdy. They seem to have the 49ers and Brock Purdy's number. They played him at home last year, shut him down. So they've only given up, I don't know if they even given up a touchdown pass this year. I don't believe they've even given up a touchdown pass.
I believe they've given up 1 touchdown pass, 2 total touchdowns this year.
Yeah. Okay. So, but here's the thing. They've given up the 3rd most completions and the 3rd most passing yards in the NFL. CJ Stroud can throw the ball. He doesn't turn it over. He can throw touchdowns. So I think this is one of those games on paper, and it could be tough for him, but on paper, if he just throws a touchdown or 2, he probably will get the yards. This matchup might not be as bad as we're thinking. So I think that he's startable. I've got him QB 8 because it is on the road. It's a little bit tougher, but they are favored. Nico Collins, I've got him as a wide receiver 5 this week. How do you like that, Andrew?
Oh, it's spicy, but I'm not sure if you have to always have him up there. He's the wide receiver 1 for the team. But this week, Steven, to your pride, I actually think this might be a Stephon Diggs week. The Vikings, they blitzed the ever-living snot out of the other team because they know their defense is very untalented in the positions where they need to be talented, specifically in the cornerback position. Those corners have played well because they're blitzing a crap ton. So I think Diggs, with those negative air yards he likes to accrue, might be that quick little option to take a lot of yak and to get the Texans somewhere.
Is Harrison Smith still playing for them?
Oh, yeah, buddy.
That guy, you know how old he is?
Ancient. 36.
He's 35. Let's see. I wonder what his date of birth is, actually. He turned 35 in February. So, but man, that guy's just been money for a long time for that team.
He's crazy. He has like a cabin somewhere way off, like in the off season that'll go to, kind of Aaron Rodgers-esque, and just do some insane training in it. He's insane.
I can see that. He probably does a thing where it's like he's doing pull-ups while like somebody's hitting him in the ribs with a baseball bat while a grizzly bear is growling at him or something.
You
I could
have to
picture
have a
that.
grizzly bear there. It doesn't work if the grizzly bear is not there growling at you.
Yeah, because you got to get the adrenaline going.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can't be a brown. It can't be like a black bear. It can't be a panda. It has to be a grizzly bear.
Something that could kill you. Yeah.
Can a black bear not kill you? I don't know about a panda bear. A panda bear could.
Well, maybe not Smith. I mean,
That's
they
true.
They could kill you.
I would be done for.
But
a teddy bear would get me.
All right. Well, somebody in this Texans game is going off. I think. I think one of these wide receivers. Well, maybe it's Diggs. Maybe it's Nico. Regardless, Minnesota giving up the 5th most receptions to wide receivers. So I think there's definitely some room for both of those guys, if not all 3, to have a good game.
I'm going to take the platform right now to say Tank Dell. I watched film on him. That dude's hurt still. He's coming off that Tony Pollard injury, and I'm watching corners cover him, even the Colts crappy ones. They see him running at him, and they're just not intimidated. He doesn't have the burst or the speed right now. He's a second half buy, I think.
Well, and we shouldn't be surprised. Joe Mixon, I think it's kind of 50-50 whether he plays or not.
He still hasn't practiced. Yeah, but to your point, he could practice Friday. He's an old vet.
So if he plays, obviously you have to play him, but I'm definitely tempering expectations because a hurt Joe Mixon I'm not as excited about. He looked spry and young in week 1. I could see drastically changing if he's injured and looking old and like he's plotting again. So I'm still starting him if he plays, but it's not a great matchup. If he doesn't play though, I'm not going Cam Akers.
No,
I'm just avoiding the backfield altogether. I think that the offense will just try to throw more. It's actually a decent matchup for Dalton Schultz, but it's just so hard with these wide receivers to ever trust him. Like he could have a game, but I think you only start him if you've got one of these injured tight end situations. Like I've got him as the tight end 15 this week.
You're begging for a touchdown at that point.
Yeah.
That's really it. Start the receivers. Start Schultz if you absolutely have to. Start Stroud because you always will. What Vikings are you starting?
Yeah, let's get over to Minnesota. Well, Justin Jefferson, obviously, starting him.
Okay, I'll write that one down.
Okay. And Aaron Jones, start him. I think temper expectations, though. I think this is going to be a tough game for him. I think it's going to be hard to come by points, but I think he'll get enough work and he's efficient enough to make it happen. But that's it. Those are the only 2 I'm looking at.
I think Aaron Jones is always a good start. He's the prototypical pass catching running back. So that's going to mean some highs and lows. He's not getting 25 carries a game like Ramondre Stevenson or something. He's going to have some down games because he's going to get it done in the passing game. He's second on the team in targets. The old adage of when all the other receivers are hurt, other than Jefferson, your running back, your pass catching running back gets a lot of catches. And that's what Aaron Jones is doing. He's second on the team in targets. Jones is going to be matchup proof to start. That doesn't mean he's going to be phenomenal every game.
Yeah. And this one, like I said, is tough. Houston giving up the 3rd fewest fantasy points. They're giving up the fewest total yards, and they're giving up the 4th fewest receptions. So I think they're good at stopping what he can do, but he's good enough to be an RB2. But temper expectations.
I totally agree. That's really the only guys you can start here. AJ, on to the next one.
All right, next we have the Eagles taking on the Saints, and don't know if I'm reading this right, but this says that the Saints are favored by 2.5.
I know.
The over-under is 49.5. And Andrew, you were talking about our friend Rashid Shaheed a little earlier. After this past weekend, he has 10 rushing/receiving touchdowns, and the average yardage on those touchdowns is 48.9 yards.
That's a kick return. This man's just housing everything that he gets in his hands.
Fire him up. I'm firing up a lot of Saints in this one. I'm firing up Derek Carr. I've got him as the QB 12 this week. Like I said, there's a lot of quarterbacks that you can play this week. If you're hurting a quarterback, this is a good week to be hurting. I like him as, like I said, the QB 12, Philadelphia. They still haven't, I don't think, fixed that secondary. I think they could be beat. They're giving up the 5th most passing yards and touchdowns to the position and the 8th most fantasy points. So you could definitely fire him up. Chris Olave, this is, I think, his comeback game, hopefully. They'll probably see a decent amount of Darius Slay, which makes me a little bit nervous, but Olave should be fine. And then Shaheed, again, great matchup. I'm going to keep rolling with it. Andrew, I do think, to your point, he is a sell if you can get really good value for him, but I think he's going to have these games where he does score these touchdowns, makes these big plays, and I think this could be another one of them.
He's thoroughly involved in this offense. I absolutely believe that. And so he's going to be a wide receiver too. He's a fine receiver. He's not a phenomenal receiver. He's like a little more than a Jag, but just like with a deep ball specialty to him. So he's actually a good receiver as long as the Saints offense is really good. And this is one to really take advantage of. Eagles, I'm so sorry. Quinyon Mitchell, great young corner. Unfortunately, Darius Slay decided to be terrible this year, though you still only have one good corner. They are a pass funnel, and they can't even stop the run every time.
Well, corner is not a position you want to get old playing,
Nope.
and he is 33 years old. So
ancient.
That catches up with you quick. There's not a lot. Look at the position. Very few play to as long as he has. So, yeah, that's why, again, I'm not worried about it with Chris Olave. I got him as my wide receiver 8 this week.
Absolutely all in. Olave. Hopefully the Saints play a team that makes them actually match them. Now, do be aware, the Saints are one of the run heaviest teams in the NFL. Now,
Yeah, but they've
been up by a lot. But I'm telling you, like, even in a neutral script, that is the way they want to live. This is a Shanahan offense, as weird as it is to say in New Orleans. They are run first.
Yeah. Well, also, do you really want Derek Carr throwing it 40 times a game? Probably not. Derek Carr can play good if he's doing, maybe he's playing off of play action. The defense has to commit some to the run. Once you know he's throwing it, that's when he starts to make mistakes.
Once the pass rush gets there, that's when he's in trouble. Got to keep
which they haven't been able to get to him yet. Eagle side of the ball, I'm as far as just the game goes, man, they had that game last week. That was just crazy that they let a game slip away like that. I didn't even feel like they lost at the end. It was weird. So I don't know. They could be reeling in this one, and this could be a upset for the Saints. But I could also see them with a slide because this New Orleans is a tough place to play. Well, that's hard to say. But Jalen Hurts, you're still firing him up. QB3 for me this week. It's a tougher matchup, but I don't care. Same with Saquon Barkley. It's a tough matchup, but that just means they're going to use him more. So you're firing him up. He's my RB4 this week. And Devonta Smith. I think he could have a really big game in this one because we're not going to have A.J. Brown. I don't think the Saints are too scared. They've notoriously been good at stopping tight ends over the last 5 years or so. So I think they could take him away. So I think this is a big Devonta Smith game.
Yeah, it's going to be the Eagles start your studs. This is a really nice offense for that. Devonta Smith, as long as AJ Brown's out, Smith needs to be in your lineup. He's so talented. He's going to get so much volume. Start Saquon. He's getting super involved in the passing game, which is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And Jalen Hurts, a little nugget of hope because last year really sucked. I don't know about you guys watching the game. He just looked different running. It was the Jalen Hurts that went to the Super Bowl. It was so frustrating to see him take off 3 yards at a time and sliding. And this one, he had an incredible time running. Hurts had the most rushing yards in that game since 2022 when he was tearing the NFL apart. So that's just good for the Eagles offense as a whole.
No, he did look good. That was one thing that I heard somebody after week 1 saying that he looked slower. Well, if he looked slow in week 1, he didn't. I thought he looked just fine in week 2. This offense is rolling. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up winning this game. I think it could go either way. But start your studs.
AJ, on to the next one. We're not going to get one as good as that, unfortunately. Actually, no, there are a couple good ones on the slate, but man, we love a 50-point over-under. What's the next one, though?
All right, next we have the Chargers taking on the Steelers. The Steelers are favored. They're favored by 1.5. Over/under is 35.5. And gentlemen, in the 4 different games that these two teams have played this year, neither of them have combined for the over/under, and the lowest combined score that one of these teams has seen has been 29 points, and that was last week when the Chargers won 26-3.
I set up my little sheet for myself and I put the over-unders on them myself, and that went down. People won't even bet an over of 36. I have it at 36. They had to drop it to 35.5
to get people to bet the over.
Action.
This is going to be boring. This is a start your defenses match situation because I think both these defenses could be decent in this one, but I'm not looking to fire up either quarterback, especially with all the good matchups that I mentioned that you have at the quarterback position. This is not that week, so I'm not firing up Fields. I'm not firing up Herbert. George Pickens, Yeah, but like as a wide receiver 3, I don't like the matchup for him. The Chargers giving up the fewest receiving touchdowns. They're giving up the second fewest fantasy points to the position. I mean, they did play Carolina, in half their games this year, so that's going to help. And then the running backs, I don't want to start. Like, I thought Najee Harris could have a good game against Denver last week, and he came through with like 7.5 fantasy points. So I'm really not looking to fire up maybe George Pickens, but that's about it on the Pittsburgh side. And
you're just really, really hoping that somehow one of the running backs can fall into the end zone or George Pickens catches a deep ball. That's the only hope.
Yep. And then let me get to the Chargers here if I can find them. Yeah, like I said, Justin Herbert, I found him as a QB 27 this week. Like, the volume's not there. This is a bad matchup. He's banged up still. Yeah, I don't want to. I'm not touching him in my lineup. The wide receivers, maybe McConkey, you could throw him in as like a wide receiver 3. He's the only one I have just a tiny bit of confidence in. I'm not chasing what Quentin Johnston did last week. Maybe he ends up being good this year. He was a first-round pick. It's possible. I still think that rookie season, we still got to remember that happened. So, but this is not a week. I'm just because he scored on my bench last week does not mean I'm putting him in my lineup this week. And then last one, I'll mention J.K. Dobbins. I think he is benchable. I don't want to say bench him but it's really roster specific. If your team is loaded and he's just an extra piece for you, I don't feel like you have to fire him up because he's the RB3 on the season.
17 implied points for the Chargers.
Yikes.
So if Dobbins is going to get it done, he's going to have to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield or be the one guy on his team who scores the touchdown. That's not a game you want to be playing. Now, the Chargers offensive line is just really freaking good. They have a really good run unit that's really creative. So he might pop off another 60-yard run and prove us wrong. But again, that's the gamble you're playing. That's not what you want to be relying on. I do have hopes so that Dobbins overtakes this backfield more than this, especially as the year goes on. But yeah, that Steelers defensive line is real.
Well, and we're going to do this every week, AJ. I think you'll appreciate this. It's 2,426 miles from LA to Pittsburgh. That's far. So it makes me a little bit nervous. Again, a little jet lag. I think this under is going to hit.
I don't see like Quentin Johnston and J.K. Dobbins being responsible and sleeping. Like, I bet they stay up playing Nintendo Switch or PlayStation on the flight over. So there's my insight there. Plus, QJ is going to get Joey Porter Jr. on him. So I don't like that at all. QJ.
Yep.
Not a surprise there. AJ, your Steelers got to do something for us. They need to score touchdowns. Please move us on to the next one.
Oh, don't.
All right, next we have the Broncos taking on the Buccaneers. The Bucs are favored by 6.5. Over under is 40.5. And Steve, your Broncos, they're used to playing in a stadium that has elevation of 5,280 feet. When they travel to Tampa Bay this week, they'll be playing in a stadium with an elevation of just 58 feet.
Does that depend on where you are in the stadium?
Probably, yep.
They're going to have so much oxygen in their lungs.
You know what? Here's a fun fact. I have been to two NFL stadiums I've watched a football game from. And it's both of these stadiums. I've been to Mile High plenty of times, and I've been to Tampa twice. And I can tell you, it's a little more fun in the Tampa stadium. They got that whole ship there with like there's a whole area up by that ship where you can like watch the game on the Megatron, and it's the weather's much nicer. Like,
it's Florida. It's way better than Denver in the winter.
Yeah, I've gone to Broncos games and literally thought I had to get my toes amputated at the end. So if you're looking for a more enjoyable February experience or January experience, go to Tampa.
Yeah, you don't get many February experiences in Denver. Ain't that right, Steven?
Not, at least not at Mile High, no. All right, Broncos side of the ball. So this is a tough one because on paper it looks like a good matchup. But we got to remember the Bucs, they played Washington, which a lot of the stats, Brian Robinson had a good game in that one. Jaden Daniels had a good game in that one. And then they played Detroit, which we know is a very good offense. And the two running backs there are very good. The receivers there are very good. So on paper, because we're only 2 weeks in, this actually doesn't look like a bad matchup. So it's kind of tricky. I mean, you're not starting Bo Nix, but Javonte Williams has some appeal. The Tampa Bay Bucs, which I don't know if Vita Vea is playing in this one, so that makes things a little bit easier. But it's not that I expect him to rush for a lot, but I do think in this Sean Payton system, he could get over 5 receptions in this one and be just good enough to get you 12 to 14 fantasy points. So take that information. I think he's got that in for him. This last week, he got 11 points, 11 and a half, I think, against a tough Pittsburgh defense. So I think he can do that again against Tampa. That's about it for Denver, though. It's Javonte Williams, maybe Cortland Sutton if you're completely desperate, but that's probably all I'm looking at.
It's really tough. Javonte Williams' utilization says he should be startable in your lineup. It's actually really good. Last week, 65% of the rush attempts, 54% route participation, and a 16% target share. That whenever I was ranting about Tony Pollard being good, his numbers are better. Javante's are better. His share, but unfortunately, this Broncos offense is just so bad. So there's a world where in like 2 or 3 weeks, the Broncos just something clicks and the offense is average, and all of a sudden Javonte Williams is incredible because of this backfield share. But for now, he's nothing more than a desperation flex play, or if you're ravaged by injury in your RB2 spot.
So Andrew, I'm working on the start sit post that I'm going to put out on Saturday. He's kind of slotted in there right now. Do I keep him in there? Do I pull him out?
Utilization says yes for it. My eyeballs say don't put a Bronco anywhere near a starting decision. It's just terrible. You don't want to watch it. Don't do it to yourself.
You know what the NFL needs to do? I don't know what the alternate jersey schedule is, but if they could make this game be the tangerine colored uniforms for the Bucks and then the Broncos all orange, it'd be more interesting. Don't you think?
Creamsicles versus the dark orange. That's terrible.
Versus Orange Crush.
That's a crime.
Yeah.
They should not do that.
On the Bucs side of the ball, though, Baker Mayfield, I'm pretty high on him this week. I got him at QB 14. I could have gone higher, but like I said, Goff's got a good matchup. Derek Carr's got the good matchup. So it was hard to move him any higher. On paper, it's not a great matchup for Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. But again, just that gut Broncos, depressed Broncos fan. I have a feeling both will have a good game in this one, even if Surtain's on the field. So you're still firing both of them up. And then Rachaad White, if he plays, which I think he was limited today. So watch the injury report. But if he plays, I think you got to fire up Rachaad White in this one. Denver still bad against the running back position, giving up the 6th most touches to the position. And if they get close, White's probably the one that's going to run it in.
It's weird. By PFF grade, it's a good matchup for the Buccaneers in the receiving core. Like it's not bad, but they kept Seattle in check. Did the Broncos? And Pat Surtain's a lot of that. Yeah. And the Broncos are kind of doing some funky blitz things, and maybe that's causing some issues for some people. But it shouldn't be a problem. You're just hoping the Broncos can score a little bit, so the Buccaneers just start beating the ever living crap out of them. Yeah. This could be a little bit of a Bucky Irving coming out party. If the Buccaneers get up by a lot, you could see Bucky Irving get a lot more work and Rachaad White get his job taken away from him because Bucky Irving looks better.
I don't think he gets it taken away. I think Bucky Irving, little too small to have a full-time role. So, but eat away at White's workload for sure.
Size doesn't matter anymore, Steven. He's big enough. That's the answer. I believe in you, Bucky Irving. I believe in you. AJ, get us out of this matchup and on to another one.
You might rethink that when I tell you this next one.
The same thing.
I know there were good ones somewhere. There were good matchups this week.
Man, we've got the Panthers taking on the Raiders. The Raiders are favored by 5. Let's see, sorry. And the over-under is 39.5. And gentlemen, since Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold left the Panthers, they have combined for 46 touchdowns to just 14 interceptions, and they're both 2-0 to start the season.
Jeez. Wow. It's a black hole you don't want to be sucked into. The Carolina black hole. Here's something, guys. Week 8, we get to talk about the Panthers versus the Broncos. That's going to be a fun one.
No, it won't. That sounds miserable. Like, I guess if you like sick, twisted humor, my wife really likes watching the show called Criminal Minds, and it's all about serial killers and it's all dark things. That's like along the same line. Yeah. It's serial killer stuff.
I'm just saying, I'm not starting a Panther. There's no Panther I'm starting. Fine. Deontay Johnson could have a game. I'll let it happen on my bench. I will wait and see. I'm not touching any of them. I know Adam Thielen. I believe Dalton started for them last season against Seattle, and Adam Thielen had a monster game in that one. So I would not be shocked if he and Dalton still have a little bit of a connection, and Deontay still doesn't have a good game. And it's Adam Thielen that ends up having the good game. So, yeah, because of all those reasons, I'm just completely avoiding this side of this offense.
I'm actually going contrarian here. I think the Dave Canales scheme makes your offense very average. I don't actually think Dave Canales is that great of an offensive coordinator. And I think Andy Dalton.
You think Bryce Young's just that bad?
He was jumping to make passes over defensive linemen into the defensive lineman for his running back in the flat. It was just that bad. I think Andy Dalton makes them tolerable so that you can get fantasy value, and this team will just be like in scoring sometimes.
Just 25th, which is still bottom 10.
So they're in EPA per play. The Panthers were negative 0.5. That's terrible. The next closest team was negative 0.3. So this team was just twice as bad as the next worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of that can be pointed at Bryce Young. We'll see. I think Andy Dalton's one of the better backups in the league, and he played well when he had to go in for Bryce Young last season. I do think, listen, as far as like coaching goes, they either know Bryce Young's never going to be it, or what the hell are they doing? Are they giving him like a break so they can work on some stuff in practice, and then they're going to put him back in?
Dave Canales just saw the guy in front of him get one and done and canned. I think he tried to save his job with this. I'd start Deontay Johnson as a wide receiver 3 if you really need it. I would fire up Chuba Hubbard as an RB3. If you really need it, I think he'll get it off of volume. He took the backfield back from Miles Sanders, where it should have been. I think Jatavian Sanders, as the year goes on, is a very interesting name. They're using him in some very creative ways out of the backfield as a full offensive weapon, not just a tight end. A name to know.
The Baltimore Ravens had to claw and scratch at home against this Vegas defense.
Look at what their top players did. They had good weeks. Derrick Henry, he popped off. Zay Flowers had a good week.
Popped off, but he scored a touchdown.
Zay Flowers or Derrick Henry?
No, Derrick Henry.
He still had 84 rushing yards.
I know, but that we were expecting that. That was at home. And they lost that game, mind you. This one's in Vegas. Vegas is 5.5 point favorites. I am fine. I'm not touching any of these guys. I will be happy if they go off on my bench, or not. I will be happy if they go off on my bench. I'll be happy, and I'll be like, all right, next week I can start one of them maybe. But
you know that bump that a team gets when they fire their coach and the interim plays for a week. That's going to be this offense when Bryce Young's sitting on the bench. Just for 1 week, it's going to bump up and be okay. I actually think they'll be fine for a week. Steven, who on the Raiders side of the ball are you willing to start?
More than I was last week. I don't think I wanted to start any of them last week. But this week, I like Devontae Adams in this one, obviously. It's not the best matchup, but I think that's just because teams, they can run against Carolina. They
didn't
don't
have
need to pass. Yeah, they didn't have to throw. So I'm not worried about any of that. Adams looked really good last week. I think you can fire him back up. Zamir White, I really like in this one, partly because they are 5.5 point favorites in this one. I think they're going to use Zamir White more than they've had to the past 2 weeks because they've had 2 tough matchups. And then everybody's new favorite tight end, Brock Bowers, who is essentially the tight end 1 right now. I think he's still like a point behind Isaiah Likely because of that big week 1 that Likely had. But Bowers is getting it done and hasn't scored a touchdown yet. That could happen this week. Panthers giving up the 3rd most points to the position. This could be a big game for him.
The Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, have one of the highest pass rates in the NFL. I actually think it might be the highest. And it's funny to look at because this is exactly what happened with Gardner Minshew.
I was going to say
Colts.
that. Wasn't he like the 7th highest last year?
Yep. And it's a combo of, it's just, they let him run his offense that he ran back in Washington. I don't know if you saw the clip. Max Crosby actually came out and said, I want Washington State Gardner Minshew, bring him out here right now. And I think they're literally trying to let him run that kind of offense. It's also that a lot of his passes are short, which is why Brock Bowers is feeding so much. And so that stacks up because 5-yard pass, that's 2 instead of 1 10-yard pass. There's enough volume to go around for Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers to have a competent week or 2. And yeah, if Zamir White's ever going to be playable, it's got to be this week. We heard Antonio Pierce go out there to the public media and say, hey, we're going to get him more work. He needs more work. He needs to eat. I don't think he's watching the games, Antonio Pierce. I think he closes his eyes because White looks terrible, but this is a matchup he should be able to take advantage of.
Yep. Yeah. I when you look at Gardner Minshew, do you think of him as a starting quarterback or as a backup quarterback?
He's a backup quarterback, but he's just that first tier of guys who you want in there because they're scrappy and the team loves him.
Yeah. It's funny though, because he basically started his entire rookie year. What remind me what happened that year? Did the starter get injured? Who was their starter before Minshew? I don't even remember what.
I'll look into this.
Because he had a very good rookie season.
I think it was a veteran. I think it was like a CJ Beathard, Mike Glennon, maybe.
Maybe.
I think veteran, he came in and he took over and he ran with it.
AJ, look it up, 2019. But he had that good rookie season, and then he's bounced around, and he's had to step in for Jalen Hurts a few times in Philadelphia, and every time I feel like he plays lights out.
Nick Foles. It was Nick Foles that he took over for.
Okay. So, yeah, I agree. I think he's not necessarily a starting quarterback, but man, every year when you look at the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, you go, well, he's better than at least a handful of them. Like, absolutely. He's better than Bryce Young.
And in his spare time, he drives on down to the river and plays pickleball against old ladies and lives out of an RV for the summer. True story. AJ, on to the next one.
All right. Next, we have the Dolphins taking on the Seahawks. Seahawks are favored by 4. Over-under is 41.5. And Steve, you'll be happy with this. Miami is flying 2,730 miles to get to Washington this weekend.
They're going to suck. They're going to suck this week. That is not... Listen, we put a lot of knowledge and research into the correlation between fantasy points and mileage flown. And that's a lot of miles, AJ. So I don't love it for the Dolphins. I'm worried about this Dolphins offense without Tua. I don't know about you, Andrew. I know you don't like Tua, but I'm worried. I'm not starting Jalen Waddle this week. I am starting Tyreek because you have to. But I don't have him ranked as a wide receiver 1 this week. And A-Chain, he's proven that he's too good. So he's still my RB8 on the week. Okay, so I'm not going to say Waddle's a complete bench. I have him as a wide receiver 32, but I'm not excited. It's kind of a Michael Pittman situation for me. I would rather not start him if I can avoid it.
I went and looked Skylar Thompson, and he had 3 starts at the end of 2022 when Tua had that injury then. And he had like basically 150, 100 to 200 yards. Like he never eclipsed 200 yards. I also went to a split tool. Apparently there were 9 games somehow that Skylar Thompson got in. If Skylar Thompson played in a ball game, Jalen Waddle averaged 9.5 points per game. Yikes. That's to your point. You're hoping for something big. Tyreek Hill averaged 16 points per game. So there's a little bit more hope there. He just is the offense. And definitely start HN.
Which sounds about like mid-range or like high-end wide receiver 2 numbers, which is about where I've been ranked. Jalen Waddle, this is kind of that point, Andrew. We're fine with our quarterbacks being middle of the pack for our wide receivers. They just can't be terrible.
Yep.
They can't be Bryce Young bad, and that's what I'm worried about here. That's why I was worried about Justin Jefferson with Sam Darnold. Now, Sam Darnold, this new system, maybe they figured it out, but we've seen Sam Darnold be good for spurts before. So
he was a top 5 pick in the draft for a reason. Skylar Thompson was a scrub out of Kansas State.
Correct. Okay. All right, let's go. You're always so mean to these guys, Andrew. Like the guy's got a family.
I have to say, people like to fluff up players too much. I'm laying down the law. Except for Gardner Minshew, you're a stud. You're a king. I love you, Gardner Minshew.
I like Minshew. All right. Seattle, though, start your Seahawks, man. I'm starting Geno in this one if I need him. I'm starting Charbonnet. We're not getting Kenneth Walker this week. There was some video of him still looks like he's favoring that oblique, so he's not going to play, which means Charbonnet took all the work last week. I don't think another running back touched the ball. So that'll probably happen again this week. Matchup should be good. They're 4.5-point favorites. They'll probably be running out. Whoa, sorry. Loud car just went by. They'll probably be using him a lot to run out the clock at the end of the game. I have him as a very high-end RB2, RB13 this week for me. And then we saw what DK Metcalf and JSN were able to do last week in what on paper was a tougher matchup. This week on paper, it's also a tough matchup, but I'm not worried about it. I'm firing them up. I'm probably not firing up Tyler Lockett, though, because I do think we're seeing him fall further down the pecking order, and I think that will continue. So, but your main guys you're firing up.
JSN, I'm waiting. I have him starting in the league because I had Cooper Kupp and AJ Brown, and I'm not terrified to start him.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm not forcing him into my lineup. I'm not chasing that quite last week. It is a very good sign of things to come. I have a feeling if a team is going to run a lot of zone defense, you're going to see JSN pop off very well. He was very purposely involved. You could still see Tyler Lockett pop off for a game or two. To your point on Zach Charbonnet, he played 5% of snaps. He's going to do the same thing. He's so inefficient with those enormous thighs. This man's thighs, his quads are AJ Dillon as huge, and I love it. But those quads don't move very fast. He'll get you your volume, though. So he'll get the job done.
Yep. Oh, and then one thing I didn't mention, the Seahawks defense. Definitely fire them up.
Yeah, Skylar Thompson's good for a pick or a fumble or something stupid.
Especially playing in Seattle. That's a tough place to play, especially if you have to travel, whatever AJ said, 2,700 and a million miles.
Just a cross-country road trip, casually, to play a football game with Skylar Thompson.
It's not only the super far east, it's the bottom. You're going far west and up. I mean, don't even get me started, Andrew.
That's so far. We're too old for that. Our backs would hurt so bad on that flight. AJ, on to the next one.
All right, next we have the Ravens taking on the Cowboys. Ravens are favored by 1. Over-under is set at 47.5. And guys, Lamar Jackson is the first reigning MVP to start 0-2 in 22 years. And to just add a little insult to injury for the Ravens, NFL kickers this year are 35 for 37 from 50-plus yards on their field goal attempts. And Justin Tucker is those only 2 misses.
Man. Fraud watch. Yeah, watch. You're not the GOAT anymore. Sorry, buddy.
No, it's Aubrey for sure. How old is Tucker? Let's get that. Let's see. Justin. Oh, I typed in just Tucker. Tucker Carlson came up. Justin.
He's not kicking many field goals these days, I'm
sure.
No,
Justin Tucker, 34, man. I mean, he's getting up there.
That's old.
Yeah. The power's not there anymore. He has to put so much more effort into it that his accuracy is dropping. This is a tough one because I feel like both of these teams aren't playing to their potential. I think this is going to be a bit of a dogfight. I could see either team winning in this one, which the Vegas line kind of shows that. You're starting Lamar. He's my QB4 this week. I've been saying so far this offseason, I think Zay Flowers looks like a different wide receiver this year. He just looks very good to me. If he gets the volume like he did last week, I think he's going to have those weeks. Not a great matchup, but I'm still firing him up. On paper, this is a better matchup for Derrick Henry. Dallas giving up the most fantasy points to the position, but Derrick Henry, as much as I is excited about him this year, hasn't looked great yet. But I will say this whole offense has looked like they've been sputtering a little bit. I think they just still haven't put it all together yet. But they're still firing him up. I got him as the RB10. You know, Andrew, he's good for a rushing touchdown at some point. And then Mark Andrews, I'm still firing him up. Isaiah Likely, probably not. Probably sitting on my bench.
You're going to see the Ravens try to run the crap out of the ball. Their offensive line is terrible in pass protection. That was the big scare for the Ravens. A lot of guys left. So they're going to try to run the snot out of the ball and then try to throw it to Zay Flowers if that doesn't work. The Ravens are very easy this year. Start Lamar. Start Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry saw what Kamara just did to the Cowboys and said, I'm going to do that too. Zay Flowers start him. He's got one of the best utilization rates in the NFL. It's been phenomenal. Always start Zay Flowers to this point. And Mark Andrews, fire him up. He's might have lost a step. He's still their guy.
Here's a question. I just realized this. Derrick Henry and Ezekiel Elliott, both from the 2016 draft class, going against each other. I don't feel like I've seen them play each other. They have to have, but that could be something, AJ, you have to look into if they ever played against each other.
That's an interesting one. But both these guys are quite a bit washed. It just helps when you're Derrick Henry and you're older.
You want to be
the size of a giant.
Yes, he's still going to stiff arm people to the ground. But like I said, my thing was they're not going to run Lamar if they don't have to near the goal line. So far through 2 weeks, we've seen Derrick Henry. We know they're going to get near the 5-yard line, and Derrick Henry's going to get the ball. Other side of the ball, wide receiver, obviously you're starting Lamb. Probably the only receiver I'm looking to start in this one. Maybe a Hail Mary throw for Brandon Cooks if you want. I'm not ready to throw Tolbert in my lineups yet. But that, and even Dak, I don't really want to start this week. Like I said, there's a lot of good matchups. I got Dak as my QB 15. I think Dak will have his games. I just think I haven't seen enough good things out of the Dallas offense yet. So I'm fine benching him and waiting till things start to look better. Jake Ferguson might play this week. If he does play, I kind of like him. The Ravens haven't been very good against tight ends, so I think that he could do something in this one. So I do want to play him if he's healthy enough.
I can start Dak just because it's Dak, and you just, if you have a better option, he's just a coin flip. If you have a better option, you start the better option in a good matchup. But if you don't, then you're gonna have to start Dak Prescott, and you're not terrified of it.
Let's do a name game, Andrew.
Oh gosh, okay.
You love name games.
I know. I just don't know what to do with Dak Prescott against the Dallas Cowboys. But hit me with it.
Listen, I run through these dilemmas when I do my rankings every week. So I'm gonna let you play the game too. Dak Prescott or Jared Goff?
Jared Goff against the Cardinals.
Yep. Brock Purdy against the Rams or Dak Prescott?
Man, I might go Dak just because the 49ers, will get to it, they're so hurt.
I'm playing Brock. Derek Carr or Dak?
Derek Carr or Dak? Derek Carr actually this week. That's actually an easy one for me.
Geno Smith or Dak?
I got to go Dak. I have to lean Dak. I got to go Dak. I'm chasing the points. Their over-under is 48.5.
True. That's a good point. Baker Mayfield or Dak?
I'm going Dak there. I just don't think the Broncos hold up their side of the bargain.
Okay. All right. So you've got him as, it looks like, about a high-end QB2. So it kind of just depends on your roster.
Exactly that.
I am avoiding both defenses in this one, though. I'm not starting either one.
I don't want to start either Zeke or Rico Dowdle. You can, in a pinch, start either one of them. I'm looking at the utilization. It hasn't been decided which one's the guy. They split reps. It's a mess. AJ, next matchup.
Alrighty, but before I jump in, Steve, it looks like Henry and Elliott have played each other once with, I think the Ravens won that game. But next we've got the 49ers taking on the Rams. The 49ers are favored by 6.5. The over-under is 43.5. And the travel distance for this game, going kind of the other way, is only 372 miles. So pretty short.
Non-factor. Complete. The only way it's better is if they got the Rams and the Chargers playing. It's the only way to get better. All right, so I like the 49ers in this one. This Rams team, as much as I love Sean McVay, and these games can be close, doesn't Shanahan have a big advantage in this matchup, the head-to-head? I feel like he has won quite a bit more than McVay has in these head-to-heads. I don't know off the top of my head. I just have this feeling that he has. But in any event, I know they've got some injuries, but not as many. The Rams are they're not as deep at the position as a team as the 49ers are. So 49ers favored by 6.5. I think they will do that. I think Brock Purdy has a good game. I think Jordan Mason has a good game. I think this is finally a good week for Brandon Ayuk, and I think Kittle. I think all four of those guys could have really good games in this one, and I want all of them in my lineup.
Here's the issue. George Kittle's not going to play in this game. He popped up for a hamstring injury today.
Oh, no.
And that's why I'm downgrading Brock Purdy. It's not been confirmed, but it popped up. I'm looking at my fantasy meds docs all day.
It's 100 on the 10. Perfect 10 out of 10 on the PFF matchup scale. Don't tell me this, Andrew.
Eric Saubert as your starting tight end. So that's why I'm a little bit lower on this matchup. I just think they're going to put the ball in Jordan Mason's belly.
Mason's having a game. But dude, Ayuk's going to have a game.
What is this? The best possible matchup for a running back, I think, in the NFL right now. The LA Rams, they can't stop anything. They can't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. So fire up Jordan Mason. You have to start. If Brandon Ayuk doesn't do something this game, it's red flags.
He's going
everywhere.
He will. I mean, you could maybe even throw in Jawan Jennings as like a emergency play.
Great.
Like a ripcord for this one.
DFS play, a real cheap play. Just to say, Debo's out. Looks like Kittle's out. It's just Ayuk, Jordan Mason, and Brock Purdy.
That's the second week in a row we've seen a tight end get injured before the game even happens.
It's brutal.
It sucks. Yeah. Tight end sucks this year. Thank God for Brock Bowers.
Speaking of hurt people. Will you start anyone on the Rams?
Do I even have them in my weekly rankings? Let's see. Oh, there are a few of them. Well, Kyron Williams, you have to start, but
Yep.
I don't love the matchup. I think this offense could just be stuck in the mud to where it's like, oh yeah, he's going to get all the work, but how many touches he can get when they're going 3 and out most of the game? That's my worry. So I've got him as the RB18 this week. I'm just not excited to put him in my lineup. I don't think he scores a touchdown. That's the only thing that saved him the past 2 weeks, and I don't think it happens this week. So I think he's giving you like a 10-point performance. And then Matt Stafford, you're not starting him. EFS, maybe an emergency play. I think Demarcus Robinson, he could get a few looks here and there, and he's their number 1 wide receiver. And the 49ers giving up the 3rd most fantasy points to the position. So I think in a pinch, in an emergency situation, he could be started.
It's just misery. I think Sean McVay will get in his bag and do every single thing he can to make Kyron Williams do a lot for this offense. So I do trust that Kyron will be startable. He just went from possible RB1 overall in the season to an RB2 that you start. It's like Alvin Kamara last year. You start him and you don't watch the game. It's going to be painful. You're going to see him get walloped. So it's just Kyron for me.
He does feel like an RB 14 to 12 to 14 this year.
Yep.
But that's over the course of the season. If he stays healthy the whole season, maybe week 8, from weeks 8 to week 18, maybe he's a league winner. It's still
when you
possible.
get the horses back. Did you see that they probably didn't put Cooper Kupp on the IR because they've maxed out their IR spots? Did the Rams?
I didn't
you can
realize
only have
that's
8
the
players.
reason. Yeah, I think SportsMed said something like, I don't think he mentioned that specifically, but he said that, or maybe he did. I don't know, but he basically was like, I don't care that they didn't put him on IR. I'm still worried.
Yep, they're claiming that he didn't need it. It's not the case. AJ, get us away from the LA Rams. It makes me sad.
All right, so we're finally getting to a pretty good game. We've got the Lions taking on the Cardinals. Detroit is favored by 3. The over-under is 51.5, and this is the 3rd week that the Lions have had their matchup be the highest over-under for the week. But, gentlemen, let me warn you, in weeks 1 and 2, those matchups have not hit the over.
No, trust me, there's not been enough points from these Lions, and I have not been happy with it.
Their defense is just good enough.
Well, I started to notice that last year. I was like, man, Detroit is always near the top of the Vegas over-under or the implied points, and this offense is just good. There's just a lot of good talent. It's kind of like the Motown 49ers, I feel like. But I like both offenses in this one. For the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, I've got him ranked as the QB1 this week. I liked what I saw last week. He looks so quick when he's running. Now he's got Marvin Harrison, who I'd like to see Harrison get a little more work than just the first quarter this week, because I think he had a really good game a really good quarter last week. But I need to see that happen in all of the quarters. But yeah, you're firing at both those guys. James Conner, it's a tough matchup for him, so I think he could come back down to earth. But James Conner's sort of matchup proof, so I don't really care that the Lions are giving up the fewest fantasy points to the position. I've just got him as like my RB14 this week. Otherwise, he'd probably be higher. And then Trey McBride, still tough matchup for him. Also, don't care. He's my tight end 1 on the week.
James Conner just does everything for this team. Again, another great guy with tons of utilization. And he could fall into the end zone 2 times because they throw the ball and it gets down at the 5-yard line. So Kyler Murray is also a very exciting start alongside him.
He was a guy, Andrew. Remember, we were talking about it this offseason, and I was like, he's never been a guy I've been excited about, but I'm going to have to draft him this year. I'm going to be forced into drafting him, and I posted about it, and so far, James Conner has lived up to that.
I had him top 15 preseason. Had him ahead of a lot of other guys like Rachaad White. I remember I felt so good getting to slide his name up above a guy like Rachaad White.
Now, it's too early to do victory laps because part of the reason we never like James Conner is he gets injured. And he is older, so we'll see what happens there. On the Detroit side of the ball, love Jared Goff this week. Again, I wanted to push him up higher, but there's this dual threat quarterback buffer that you can't get past. You can't push him ahead of AR or Jaden Daniels anymore. So because of that, he's my QB 10. But this is a perfect matchup using PFF's strength of schedule metric. And like you said, they've got the highest implied team total of the week. So you kind of got to go with that. And the matchup's good. Yeah, same thing with the Amon-Ra St. Brown. Same thing with the running backs. And Jameson Williams. Literally fire every Detroit Lion up.
I went and looked, and the Jameson Williams stuff, it's real. He's doing a lot. It's a lot like Rashid Shaheed and a lot of the routes they're doing. They're just a very important part of this offense. And Jameson Williams looks like a different receiver than he did last year. He grew up like the offense set, or like the coaching staff said he did. I'm wondering if there's a squeaky wheel thing going on with Sam Laporta this week. He just has not been involved because he hasn't had to be. And so I wonder if they get Sam Laporta a couple more touches. But David Montgomery, I think, could get his biggest workload of the season because I think the Lions might be able to get ahead. The Cardinals, I think they'll score, but they don't have a defense at all. So
Right.
There's a world where the Lions get off to a 14-point lead out of nowhere, and you see David Montgomery carry the ball 25 times.
No, I agree. I think this is, like I said, this is Motown San Francisco 49ers because they just have, I think this hurts Amon-Ra St. Brown long term, like for the season compared to what we're used to seeing from him. Now, I think he's the safest out of all of the options in the Detroit offense, but he was so consistent last year. I think he's going to have more of those dip games because of all the weapons around him. And we're seeing it with Laporta. But to your point, like we see with George Kittle has those games where he just goes off. Would I be shocked if Sam Laporta has 3 touchdowns on Sunday? No.
Amon-Ra St. Brown is a little bit riskier. Jameson Williams, I'm saying, is real, but he's really a wide receiver too. Is it still Amon-Ra's offense? 19 targets last week will make me excited.
Yeah, exactly.
AJ, great matchup for us. Thank you. May I have another? What's the next one?
All right, next we have the Chiefs taking on the Falcons. The Chiefs are favored by 3. Over under is 46.5. And I know that you guys saw this fun fact earlier because Jacob texted it to us, but I'm going to lean on him since I was in the airport and could not find a fun fact for this game. But Malik Neighbors has more air yards this season with 257 than the entire Chiefs receiving corps with only 248.
That's not that surprising if you've watched any Chiefs football so far this season. Kelsey hasn't been able to get it done. Xavier Worthy's getting passes. Other than that one blown coverage week 1, he's getting it mostly near the line of scrimmage. And then we know Rashee Rice is just catching slants for the most part and getting yards after the catch. So not completely shocked by that, but that's still a crazy stat. On Atlanta's side of the ball, this is a tough one. I could see Kirk Cousins in this offense. They look good for about the last quarter of that Philly game. They just went down the field, scored that touchdown to win it. If we see that kind of Falcons, I think they could have the Chiefs on their heels in this one. Tough matchup for Bijan on paper, but I don't care. He's my RB3 on the week. Kirk Cousins, though, on paper, this looks like a good matchup for him. I'm still just more of a wait and see still with Kirk Cousins. I want to see him healthier, but if he was healthy, this would be a game I'd be recommending him, similar to, Jared Goff, because I think that the Chiefs can be thrown on. Drake London, as much as Andrew, I know you wanted to do a small victory lap last week. He scored was there a second left in the game? How much time?
No, I just heard you say that he scored a touchdown and had a good 15-point week. That's all I'm hearing.
Okay. I was just curious how many points he would have had prior to that last second throw. But
yep, he had 17 points last week. I see that too, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. I'm still a little worried about Drake London. I'm not just going to chase that box score quite yet. I've got him as a wide receiver 21 on the week. So it kind of depends on my lineup. If you drafted him, you probably have to start him.
It's this week. It's not fair. Drake London has gotten some absolutely terrible matchups on his side, getting Joey Porter Jr., getting Trent McDuffie this week. Kansas City, it's not fair. Where do you keep finding stud cornerbacks? Can I have one? My Colts desperately need one, and you've got a pantry full of them. You're hoarding them. It's not fair. Drake London's got a bad one here. It's going to be a rough one.
What I don't like, I don't want to see Chiefs with a really good defense. I want Spagnuolo out of there because I want to see Patrick Mahomes. Like, remember, was it last season? Yeah, last season, the Lions defense couldn't stop anybody. I want that Chiefs. Like Drew Brees back in the day, back when Drew Brees was throwing for 5,000 yards every year, they had no defense. I want that for the Chiefs, to where Mahomes has to throw it 40 to 50 times a game. Until that happens, we're still going to get some of these low-scoring affairs with Patrick Mahomes. It's not fun.
Running
Sorry,
backs.
Andrew.
Running backs on the Chiefs side of the ball.
Well, sorry, I got sidetracked here with that whole thing. But Kyle Pitts, I think, could actually have a game here. Chiefs haven't been great against the Titans. We saw what Isaiah Likely did that first week of the season. If Kyle Pitts is going to be an athletic, I mean, that looked like a Kyle Pitts type of game you'd think we'd see from Kyle Pitts from Likely a few weeks ago. Hopefully Pitts can do it. I think you definitely want to fire him up for this one.
That's what we're hoping for out of him. But the Chiefs side of the ball here, Rashee Rice, have to start him. Absolutely. Every single week. I think that's probably it for wide receiver. You're starting Travis Kelce because you drafted him. What the heck do we do with these Chiefs running backs? I'm saying Carson Steele's probably the guy.
I don't know. I think it's a coin flip between him or P. Ryan. And it could be Steele gets the running work. And I saw some blurb where it's like, yeah, Kareem Hunt looks like the guy, just as good as we thought he'd be. And I'm like, no way. That guy didn't have any athleticism when he came into the league for the most part. That's got to be sapped and completely gone at this point. He's got to run a 4.840 at this point in his age. So I don't know, but I could see P. Ryan being a sneaky good PPR option. I do think he could catch enough passes because he is a good receiver, kind of like he did in Cincinnati 2 years ago. I think he could be that kind of a player. So I think P. Ryan would probably be the guy, especially this kind of a game on the road. I think P. Ryan could be the guy in the short term, but yeah, on the season, and I don't have a ton of confidence, but I think it could be Steele.
Carson Steele, owner of an alligator, that's an immediate bump. So that sets a floor for you. That gets you in my starting lineup.
Yeah, for sure.
He had 1,500 yards rushing at Ball State as a sophomore, and he gets involved in the receiving game. He had 29 receptions that year with Ball State. Then he transferred to UCLA where he had 17 receptions. Doesn't sound like a lot. That's a decent amount for a college.
That's not bad for
back.
college. Yep.
So Carson Steele, sneaky to take over this job and own a backfield. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I don't think enough people are considering that because they call him a fullback.
Yeah. And we see sometimes guys like this that are like kind of like a Rex Burkhead type that just, they're not great running backs, but in the right situation with the right coaching staff, when there's injuries that have happened, they can be usable.
All right, AJ, get us on to the last couple of games.
All right, so we're moving on to the first of two Monday night games. NFL, what are you doing? But we have the Jaguars taking on the Bills. Bills are favored by 5. Over under is 46.5 points. And guys, the Jacksonville Jaguars fans are called the Teal Nation, which just seems pretty gross, but is very fitting for a team who put their mascot out there last year in just a Jaguar head and a Speedo.
That was cool. That was awesome. They need to do that more.
Yeah, they got to do something to get people excited. Like, this is not a fan base with a ton of fans.
Fire Doug Peterson. That'll get me excited.
I will say, though, one of my favorite uniforms in football. I like it. The color scheme, the helmet, all of it. The product usually doesn't match. Jacksonville, though. Travis Etienne, that's about it for me. Andrew?
I like Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas is just a very, very solid, talented wide receiver. It's not a good matchup. The Bills have been good at especially stopping the over-the-top passes. So I'm keeping him in mind. I'm starting him if I have to. I have a feeling this will be more of a Christian Kirk game because, again, they take away the deep passes. But yeah, it's no wide receiver that I'm forcing into my lineup. I'll begrudgingly start Thomas or Kirk if I need to.
It's too bad because I think this would be an Evan Ingram game.
Yep.
You can throw to the tight end against their linebackers, but he's not playing. There's no way.
Brenton Strange, actually, decent DFS or random streaming pickup. He had like 6 catches for 50 yards.
Yeah. But should have been Evan Ingram, man. But yeah, Etienne, I think Etienne could have a good game. The only way he doesn't, I think, is if this offense just plays miserable, which it's possible in Buffalo. But I'm hoping they play better. And if they do, I think Etienne will get enough work and do enough with it that he's a solid play. He's my RB12 on the week.
You can run the ball against Buffalo despite how bad the Jaguars running game is.
Yep. Other side of the ball, Josh Allen, QB2 this week. I just have Kyler Murray ahead of him. And that's probably most would have Josh Allen. He should be fine in this one. James Cook, love him. Got them as the RB9. This is a team that gives up the 6th most receptions to the running back position through 2 weeks. He can catch the ball, so I like him. Andrew, are you still Khalil Shakir? It's just a Jag. You think he's separating himself at all from the other receivers? I think he's still going to be, when the dust settles, he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver for at least this season on Buffalo.
I think his statistics overall will be that he's the wide receiver 1, and you should treat Khalil Shakir as such. I think Keon Coleman will eventually snag that title from him, and Dalton Kincaid is an every week starter. Don't be scared off. I think he was on the verge of a decent game last week before everything unfolded in the second half.
Yeah, and this week I don't think the matchup's great for Kincaid, but like you said, you start him every week.
He's getting a lot of work. AJ, we got one Monday night game to take us home. What is it?
All right, we have the Commanders taking on the Bengals. The Bengals are favored by 7. Over-under is 47.5, and these teams have played each other 11 times, with the outcome being 5-5-1. So they've got a tie in there. And then I also just want to shout out my boy Mikey G, who kind of went off for the Bengals last week, the gritty king himself.
Is there a jersey behind you of Gesicki? There's got to be. You have all obscure tight ends, I thought.
It's currently in the closet. I'm kind of going through each week on my different jerseys to keep you guys on your toes.
Which version? Which is it? Miami? Is it New England? Which Gesicki do you own?
I actually have a signed Miami jersey of him.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Put that up on eBay. I want to see what you get for that.
Probably nothing.
So, Andrew, do you know, I was trying to pull it up, but I wasn't able to get to it in time. Do you know, with Gesicki last week, was he being used as a tight end? Was he being used more as a wide receiver, like as a slot?
His in-line percentage, I believe, was 16%. So that means in-line is normal, where a tight end normally lines up next to the offensive line. So yes, he's a receiver.
Yeah. Okay, so that changes things for me a little bit, because you can throw so well against Washington's secondary. We've been talking it to death. If he's playing wide receiver, like, he's a top 10 tight end this week, right?
I mean, you can treat him as such. I've been here, done that with Mike Gesicki.
I have too.
I'm willing to start him if I need to. I'm not saying it's automatic.
God, I feel like there's a name game coming up here, Andrew. And I know you love name games. Let's see. So obviously you're not starting him over any of the big names, but let's just Kyle Pitts.
I'm starting Kyle Pitts.
Me too. It is a good matchup for Pitts. All right. Jake Ferguson.
If healthy, I'm starting Jake Ferguson.
Dallas Goedert.
That is where you'll get me. I'll start Mike Gesicki there.
I think I will too. And then it gets kind of yucky after that, like Zach Ertz, Dalton Schultz. He's got more upside than those guys, so I would go Gesicki there. So that, what you're telling me, you've got him as about the tight end 10.
He's probably the best option you could pick up off the waiver wire.
Yeah. Okay. T. Higgins still could play in this game, though. And if that happens, maybe we don't see him play as much in the slot, so it gets a little dicier. But regardless, if T. Higgins plays, you're starting him. If he doesn't play, I still haven't learned that other guy's name. Andrew, help me out. What's the Josevac? There it is.
The Romanian man out of Princeton?
Yes. I think he could be started in this one. That's how bad this secondary is. So if you're desperate, kind of like a Demarcus Robinson situation, I think you could play him if completely desperate, or like DFS. I like Zach Moss in this one as a back end RB2, so I'm playing him. And then Jamar Chase, I've got ranked as the wide receiver 1 this week. If it doesn't happen this week, Andrew, I'm very concerned. And then Joe Burrow, I've got as the QB5. I think both those guys should have monster games.
I think you're about to get a very, very loud squeaky wheel from Jamar Chase as well. So it's the matchup. It's the, boy, you better get me the ball. Start T. Higgins if he plays as well. I think you got it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, if they're playing, they're in my lineup. Other side of the ball, Jaden Daniels. We were talking about this last week. Now, this was before the Monday night game, so Jalen Hurts would have scored more than him. I don't know what Kirk Cousins ended up with points-wise, but Jaden Daniels didn't score a touchdown and had like 14 fantasy points. That's his floor. 14, fantasy points. He was the QB 12 at that point before the Monday night game. So he probably finished as either the QB 13 or 14. So you don't bench him. That's what we wanted, Andrew. That was the guy we wanted. He's living up to the hype. Tough matchup. Don't care. This isn't a defense that's given up that many points. They're giving up the fifth fewest points to the position. We just saw Patrick Mahomes struggle last week. Don't care.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And Brian Robinson, another great matchup for him. He looks really good.
He does look good. He just
he's
looks like
a good running back.
Yeah, I like Austin Eckler. I think obviously he's not the Austin Eckler of old, but when I'm watching, I'm just like, you got to keep giving the ball to Robinson. Like, he looks legit.
100%. I like him a lot. This is a good matchup for Brian Robinson. As long as they don't fall way too far behind, I'm still forcing him in there. I'm not forcing a single Commanders wide receiver in my lineup.
No.
You can't make me do it. This is a bad matchup for Terry. PFF has him against Cam Taylor-Britt as one of the worst wide receiver versus cornerback matchups. I agree that Cam Taylor-Britt was that really cool Bengals corner that had that one-handed snag with in coverage against Worthy. He's a guy who also talked mad crap on Worthy before the game and then followed it up.
Okay.
That's the guy. You don't want to mess with him. I'm not starting him.
Well, I did like that McLaurin had 8 targets last week. So if he continues to get that kind of volume, he's going to have some games here and there. But yeah, it's wait and see. I don't want him in my. I thought he could actually have a good game last week. It didn't happen. If it couldn't happen against the Giants, I'm going to wait and see with him.
I'd rather start Zach Ertz at tight end over Terry McLaurin at receiver.
Ugh, I don't think I'd go that far, but that's to your point. That's not good.
Well, gentlemen, we did it. That's all of them. Even 2 Monday night games, we're able to clear it. And boy, oh boy, is this getting fun. Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Guides podcast, guys. Make sure you go like, subscribe, comment, get into our DMs. Interact with us. We love you guys. We've been getting a lot of appreciation on YouTube. Things have been growing. We really do appreciate it. We work really hard there. So please share us wherever you can. You can listen to our podcast everywhere. Get a weekly season guide from fantasyguides.com for less than a large pizza. If you want all of the great stats we're looking through, we go through our season guide as we go through this. Please go pick that up for, again, less than a large pizza. Follow the page on Instagram, X, TikTok, everywhere at Fantasy Guides. I'm Andrew Teuscher. That's Stephen Rippey. That's AJ Cleaver. And gentlemen, say goodbye to the friends at home.
Bye, friends.
See ya.
Man.